Hi guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. Today you join me in the 2024 Kia EV9. I must apologise for my interior cam today. It's suddenly decided in the UK that it's not summer anymore. What we're looking at here is a big 7-seater SUV EV from Kia. A nice reliable brand that people are coming to know and love for their great technology and ease of use. Before now, Kia's biggest car, the Telluride, was unavailable in the UK. It was just available in the US. So do we actually need a car this big here? How does it stack up against more premium rivals such as the Tesla Model X and the Mercedes EQS? And where does it fit when you consider there are a couple of cars around this price point as well, such as the Genesis GV70, Audi Q8 e-tron and the BMW iX. So the entry-level car starts at around £65,000. That gets you a 200 horsepower rear-wheel drive Air. That's good for about 349 miles of range, so it's the best in class for the range, 0 to 62 in around 9.4 seconds. So not slow, but also not particularly brisk off the line either. It comes though with the 12.3-inch displays as standard. Also, it comes with 7 seats, heated and ventilated, which is really good. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, triple zone climate control and a 360-degree camera, which is pretty class leading. That one has the best range because they're all equipped with a 100 kilowatt hour battery, 99.8 to be precise. Moving on up to this all-wheel drive GT line model, that gets you 378 horsepower, a big jump indeed, and all-wheel drive. So the range is a bit lower, 313 miles, but 0 to 62 much brisker, 5.3 seconds. That's more like it. Whilst the entry-level car only gets 19-inch alloys, this comes with 21-inch ones as standard. Also adaptive lights, some upgraded seats, and so on. You also get the fantastic blind spot monitoring cameras and the ability to drive the car in and out of a space on the key, which is quite useful in a car of this size in some small UK car parks. This is the car that I have here. There is one more above this though, which is the all-wheel drive GT Line S model, which is the same drivetrain. That starts from £76,000, includes panoramic roof and head-up display, and also Meridian audio system as standard. Although the one in this car, I would say, is still really impressive for a standard system. Loads of bass and lots of adjustment. It is a big heavy thing though, 2.6 tons at the minimum. That's a really heavy car, and it is big for UK roads, I'll be honest with you. Like, this is as long as a Defender 110. This is like 5 meters plus. Although I have to say, compared to the Defender, it does have a bit of a lower roofline, which gives it a really interesting shape. Within the first half an hour of me having this car, I was actually approached in Starbucks by a guy who had just bought a Defender, and he wanted to compliment me on how good the car looks, and we discussed the kind of price that he paid for that car, and this came in probably only about 2/3 of what that car is. So in terms of charging, there are some good options, fortunately. You've got the charge point at the back of the car, and there is a little frunk to keep the charging cables in. So in terms of your charge times, on a standard 7 kilowatt charger, which is what you'd have installed at home, or in my case at the office, it takes around 16 hours, so that is quite substantial. But it is capable on a 250 kilowatt charger, which is its max, of 10 to 80% in around 24 minutes. So let's talk about the styling. This is Kia's radical new design language, and I really like it. There's lots of sharp lines, but there's also some subdued elements that make the car more aerodynamic, and it is aerodynamically impressive, which helps with efficiency in an EV for sure. I actually quite like these alloy wheels as well. They're a bit blocky, but they really suit the shape of the car. And as I say, the lower roofline compared to some SUVs give it quite a svelte look, and doesn't actually eat up as much space in the cabin as you might think. I really like the front lights. They're so big and bold, and the daytime running light changes to the LED indicators when necessary. Even at the rear, I just love the light design, and I also love how the rear wiper is tucked under the spoiler at the top out of the way. It really is an impressive looking thing, both due to its sheer size and also just the way it's designed. I've really enjoyed the way it looks, and even though I'm not the biggest fan of this colour, the metallic does pop, and you can, on the higher end cars, get optional, albeit expensive, matte paint options. Every time I've pulled up somewhere in it, people stare at it. It's just fascinating. It's not something you see very often. And also, it's just really, really imposing on the road. For me, I actually find it more interesting styling-wise than the new Range Rovers. Step inside and things are very similar. It is a bit of a utilitarian look to it, I must admit, in comparison to some of the rivals like the BMW iX and the Mercedes EQS and that kind of thing. Like, the Germans just have a little bit more panache about the interior styling. There is a nice choice of materials in here. You've got some kind of fabric up here, and you've got some nice sort of vegan leathers here and there. And even down the bottom, like, the plastics, although hard, they're not too bad. It's definitely not as nice material-wise as those German rivals, though. And you do notice that just in terms of some of the materials that they've used in here. There are some corners cut, but I think a lot of that is in the effort to be more sustainable. There's a lot of recycled stuff in here, and I really do appreciate that. And everything that I do touch actually isn't too bad. Overall, if you were to sit in an iX or something like that, you would feel like it's a little bit more posh inside. But everything is set out quite ergonomically in here, which I do like. The steering wheel is nice and plush, and you've got some nice controls on here for your sort of audio and all of your screens and things like that. You've also got your drive and terrain modes at the bottom of the wheel, so they're quite easily accessible. Also, the controls for indicating and things like that are really nicely damped, to be fair. You've got your gear select stalk here, which also has the start stop button on, which is slightly oddly placed, but I have got used to it quite quickly. Heated steering wheel and heated seat controls are on the door, and they're all part of this kind of gloss grey material that runs through the car, which I don't mind at all. You would have thought it would be quite annoying, but actually it works better than gloss black, I find. The gloss black is a bit too fingerprinty and scratchy, and whilst this does pick up those things, it's quite easily to mask them. Like, I can't really see any fingerprints on them day to day, which means it was quite a nice choice over the gloss black. You've got your dual infotainment screens here, which are wide and also quite a decent resolution, quite clear. The one in front of me here doesn't have too much info on. It's got a couple of drive mode profiles that show different kinds of kind of graphics and stuff like that, but it is quite basic, as most of the Kia and the Hyundai ones are. The incessant beeping that you keep hearing is it telling me that I'm not looking at the road enough, and that's the thing with these cars, is they do beep at you absolutely constantly. That's one thing that I do kind of not like so much about them, really. The safety systems are all fantastic, don't get me wrong. Like, I've got the blind spot monitoring cameras on here at the moment, and also it's just nice that I've got all of the kind of lane keep assist and things like that, front collision assist. It's all really good, and it does warn you nice and early of things that are going on. But I must say, it is really intrusive, like more so than most other cars, and it does beep at you constantly. The most annoying one is the speed warning, which integrates the traffic sign recognition. If you turn it off, it turns off traffic sign recognition, which is irritating. But overall, the middle section, you've got some kind of capacitive touch buttons for shortcuts to map and media, and also there's a shortcut button that you can program, and the setup of the car and things like that. They are capacitive, but you do have to kind of press them, and it gives you some haptic feedback as well, so it's not too bad. And underneath that, you've got a physical volume wheel, which is a nice addition, with one button to turn it all off. There's also some physical climate controls, which is nice, paired up with this kind of screen here that's between the two infotainment screens that has the rest of your climate controls on. It is obscured by the steering wheel and my hand when I'm driving, which is quite annoying. I have to sort of peer around to see it. But the fact of the matter is, on the section in the middle here where the hazard switch is, I've got toggle controls for temperature and also fan speed, or just to turn the climate off. So it could be worse. Down here in the floating center console section, there's some storage right down the bottom, quite a substantial amount actually, and a little tiny cubby here, which is a bit useless to be honest, but that makes room for some storage in the back, as well as some cup holders. So I've also got my wireless phone charger here, and a few things like hill descent control, auto hold, and my parking camera button. And this has got the 360-degree cameras, which are really, really good. They show some good visibility around the car and really help when parking. Underneath the center section, there's also some cup holders, and the cup holders are the kinds that you press the button and they kind of move around. The downside of them is there's only one smaller size one, and I found the larger size one things rattle around in, but you can cover it up, which makes it look a bit better. You've also, down by my legs, you've got some charge points. You've got several USB-C ones, and also a 180 watt 12 volt adapter, so that's really good. And in this car, you've also got vehicle to load, so some plug sockets in the back. There's also USB-C throughout the cabin, so in the second and third row, you've got USB-Cs to charge your devices. There are some door bins that are a little bit small and cumbersome. I would have liked to see something a bit better there, but also you've got a glove compartment, which is a bit like a drawer. Again, not too much space there, but a little bit practical. So overall storage space, not too bad, not the best in class for sure, but overall cabin space is nice. I've got plenty of room to stretch out here, which is nice. And also material quality, as I say, is passable. What I do particularly like is this kind of Alcantara suede feeling headliner, which has got a bit of a plush texture to it. It's a bit squidgy. Infotainment in these is really good. Across the whole Kia range, you get some really good features, such as your drive profiles. You can select different sections of like different settings in the car for different people that are driving it. You've also got like quiet mode, so if you've got kids asleep in the back, it will just put sound through the front speakers. There's a few things like that. There's a car wash mode to prep the car for car washes, and also it will automatically roll up the windows and turn on the recirculation when you go into a tunnel to stop you breathing in the fumes. Really intuitive. This mirror up here, if I flick this switch, it becomes a rear view camera, which is really nice. It really helps in darker situations and with visibility. But overall, visibility is not too bad. The C-pillar isn't the worst, and there are some windows back there as well. The mirrors on the side are nice and chunky, and they are auto dimming, which is a really nice feature. And as I say, I've got the 360 cams. I can activate one of the cameras when I'm driving, and also I've got the cameras that flick on when I flick the indicators on, which are for your blind spot monitoring, which are really useful. You do adapt to them really quickly. Overall, infotainment is really fluid. Personally, I prefer to use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto and that kind of thing, so I don't use the inbuilt nav and that kind of thing too much, but it's nice to have. And it's a slick system, it's intuitive to use, you get used to it really quickly. Whilst the graphics aren't the most exciting, it is reliable as a system and really fluid. Like, I've never encountered any lag or anything like that. This screen in front of me tells me some crucial information, such as my average economy, which in this car has been around 2.9 to 3 miles per kilowatt hour with mixed driving, which isn't the best, but isn't too bad for a 2.6 ton car. Personally, I prefer the Volkswagen Audi group systems and stuff like that, which have some kind of, you know, you've got your full maps in there and stuff like that. They just make a bit better use of that screen real estate, and also stuff like the Genesis ones with the 3D effects, they look a bit more posh. But I can't complain about the usage of the tech in here. It is all pretty good to use. And of course, you've got your paddles on the steering wheel as well, which control your regen braking. So at the moment, it's in level 1, which is a pretty standard mode. You can also put it in automatic, and what that will do is it will use the front radar in the car to kind of calibrate what's going on with the regen braking and find the best solution. For me, I prefer level 1. It feels more like a traditional car. And you can then go into level 2 and also level 3, which provides more of a harsh regen effect, and then right up into iPedal mode. iPedal mode is your complete standard one pedal driving. So this is like your Teslas and that kind of thing, where, you know, as soon as you let off the accelerator, the car starts braking for you and using that regen. I do just really like how it's all available on the fly. It's really intuitive, and I really like the way it works. You've got a bit of ambient lighting in here, which you can customize as well, which does look nice. It's quite subtle. It's not overkill like some of the other cars can be at this point. But yeah, that's really nice. And then behind me, there is loads of space as well. These seats are excellent. I can get a fantastic driving position in them, and they've got loads of adjustability. They also have a dynamic posture control. So if you've been sitting in traffic for a long period of time, the seats will start to move you around physically so that you don't get too uncomfortable. I've really enjoyed that, and it's kicked in just at the right time for me. As I say, I can get a really good position in these seats. I quite like this sort of vegan leather material, actually, to be fair. And they're just plush enough that they're really good for long journeys, but they're firm and supportive enough with this lumbar control and these adjustable side bolsters, which also come in on sport mode. It's overall just a really nice experience. I really like these mesh headrests as well. They kind of remind me of like an office chair. They've got like a kind of a mesh feel to them. They're quite squidgy, and you can adjust them forward and back to get the ideal position for your preference. These front ones also go into a full recline, which I shall demonstrate now. So I've got a single button down here that I can do full recline. I can also do it on the passenger seat from here as well. And also there's USB-C charging cables there, which don't drag on the floor, which is nice. Right, let's go. Shift to park to operate. Right. There we go, steering wheel lifts. The seat moves forward so that it can fold down. And we go into a nice restful position, and the leg rest comes up as well to support me like this. That's nice. You could just have a nice little nap like this, or just sit here chatting in the car. That'd be nice. And then back up into your original driving position. Awesome. So at 6 foot, sitting behind myself is no problem at all. In this 7-seat configuration, there's loads of adjustability in the second row seats behind me. You've got a bit of recline on there, and you can slide them forward and back to make it more accessible for the rear. And there's one button that folds them forward to access the third row as well. So overall, it's quite easy to live with, and you've got some cup holders, you've got USB-C charging, you've got some storage back there, and you can also opt on the higher end models for £1,000 a 6-seat package, which takes out the middle and includes the swiveling captain chairs with armrests, which is really cool. With the second row seats in the most comfortable position, I wouldn't expect to be able to fit adults comfortably in the third row, but you can move them forward enough to allow adults in the back. Overall, headroom is fantastic throughout the whole cabin, and in the second row, you've also got overhead climate controls and vents. I would quite happily sit in the row behind me for long journeys and be absolutely fine. You could probably fit 3 adults back there quite well as well. Third row, not so much. It's not going to be comfortable for the longest of journeys, but to be honest, it's not going to be the end of the world. You can get away with it, and kids will be absolutely fine back there. There's also Isofix in both rows as well, which is really handy. And when it comes to filling the space with cargo, that's really simple too. Once you get around the back of the car, you can kick the boot to open it. You've got an electric tailgate, which is great. And once you're in, you've got loads of flexibility in terms of how you want to store things, as well as seats that fold completely flat for a huge load area that's absolutely full of features. The third row folds down electrically and folds back up electrically as well, and then the row in front of that will drop with a single button, but you have to pull them up yourself. Overall, cabin space is really impressive. I would just say, obviously, as a 7-seater, think practically. You don't want to be shoving 6 adults in here alongside you all the time, but you know, aside from that, there is tons and tons of space, especially with all those seats folded down. And, you know, obviously you can open it up a little bit more with that 6-seat option as well. Personally, as I say, I'm quite happy with the material quality in here, but it's not quite as good as the German rivals, nor does it look as fancy in here as well. It's a bit more utilitarian. And I do think it would benefit from that pan roof option on the GT Line S, just on the basis that, you know, it's going to be more open and airy in here. This is quite dark with this dark headliner, especially for such a large car, although it is helped out by this contrast leather. I also love how the GT Line S just includes that as standard as well. You don't have to option it, which is really a plus from Kia. What is great news as well is the EV3, which is the baby version of this car, has just been unveiled as a relatively affordable EV with a decent range. And it does take a lot of the styling cues from this, both inside and out, so I'm quite excited for that. I think my biggest complaint from a practicality point of view is actually not having an alternate way of controlling the infotainment system. On all of the Genesis cars, you've got the click wheel down here, a bit similar to the BMW iDrive system. And of course, BMWs will benefit from that as well. On this, it is a bit of a faff to reach over and kind of fiddle about with touch controls at times. In terms of insulation, I think it's pretty good as well. There's not much road noise, even with these larger wheels. And there's a tiny bit of wind noise from here, but the car's quite aerodynamic. I don't really have any problems with that at all. I've got no complaints. It can be a little bit fidgety over bumps, this suspension though, only on the very kind of like harsh end. But overall, there's not really too much to complain about in terms of the ride. You can happily cruise along in this, and the power delivery is fantastic. At the moment, I'm just cruising along, getting around 3.3, 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour. I'm doing 55 miles an hour. I've got plenty of charge in here. As I say, the overall range, I've actually been experiencing around 300 miles, even in not too great weather, so that's good. And the pick up and go, of course, being the higher end all-wheel drive model, it is fantastic. Let's pop her into sport mode, which tightens my bolsters a little bit and increases the throttle response. And you can see, even at sort of 50 odd mile an hour, I'm thrown back in my seat when pressing the pedal. No, it's not going to beat the high-end 1,000 horsepower Teslas and stuff like that, but for everyday use, this is more than enough. And I think even that lower end model wouldn't be too bad. Of course, it's not going to be as great off the line though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing a little bit more kind of country driving now and see where we get with it. The only thing I would say is, obviously, being a big heavy car, you can really notice that it's not as sharp as a Kia EV6 in terms of its handling dynamics, just because of that sheer weight. You can tell that the electrically assisted steering is a little bit more numb as a result of having to haul this around. But there's not too much body roll for a big heavy car like this. It's not something that I would be too concerned about. So, I mean, even coming up to this roundabout here, I'm going to approach it fairly sensibly, and then I'm going to head round. I'm not going to push it too hard, but this roundabout does tighten quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is, as it tightens, I'm just going to start applying a little bit more throttle. You can see that I'm getting a little bit out of touch now with the seat, but overall, it's quite nice. There's not too much body roll or lean, like it feels comfortable. You don't ever feel like the car's going to be out of place. And it's quite confidence inspiring as well. Even these brakes aren't too bad. For kind of like regen brakes, they're not too squishy. They can be a little bit creaky around town at low speeds, but not something I would be not too concerned about. It's something you get used to very, very quickly, depending on which mode you drive it in. Obviously, you can change that on the fly anyway, so it's no great deal. Let's go down some country roads then and kind of see how the thing handles. As I say, I've got no qualms about how it feels in terms of its robustness. I think it's just going to be a little bit disappointing in terms of comparing it to an EV6. It's not as good as that in terms of how it feels. Obviously, it's a lot bigger, a lot heavier, unnecessarily big for UK roads, I would say, in most instances, especially when a lot of people won't be filling this up with 7 people. Wow, yeah, it's so quick. When you pick up, it is really, really quick. Yeah, off the line, this all-wheel drive one, really, really rapid. Yeah, it's quite confidence inspiring. As I say, steering is a little bit numb though. There's a little bit of delay in the input, nothing scarily so, but it's just not super immediate. But it's such a big chassis to throw around. It's such a huge car. I wouldn't expect it to be very immediate, to be honest with you. When you compare it to something like a BMW iX, that's a similar price, but it's going to be slightly more upmarket inside and a bit more engaging to drive. But obviously this is larger, more versatile. So, you know, it's kind of down to your preference and what you like, really. The only thing is as well is this isn't really designed for off-roading. I mean, it's got the off-road modes there, like a mud mode, snow mode, etc., and torque vectoring and so on, but it's not got a mechanical locking differential, and it's only got 200 millimeters of ground clearance because of that battery pan at the bottom. So really, it's not going to get you out of trouble in a sort of a really rocky environment or anything like that. You're not going to want to take it for any serious off-roading, but, you know, I'm now just hacking it down a country road. Right, I'm going to hold my bag in place and do an emergency stop here. Not too bad. I felt the brakes go a bit juddery. Not as bad as I was expecting though for the weight of the car. There's a decent amount of stopping power. I don't ever feel like uncertain about placing the car either. Also, visibility, as I say, is quite good for what it is. It's quite a boxy shape and quite easy to place on the roads, and you've got all your cameras and all that kind of thing. In terms of manoeuvrability, it's going to be quite tight to fit into most car parking spaces, but the cameras do make that a breeze, and it makes it quite difficult to curb the wheels as well because you're constantly looking at those cameras. And the other thing as well, even though the 0 to 60 is really good, at the higher end this hasn't got as much punch as the majority of its rivals because it is so much heavier. The good thing about Kias as well is the warranty is excellent on them, so you can be guaranteed that your after-sales support is going to be pretty good. But the only thing about a car like this at the moment is it's a big investment and they're really plummeting in value in the used market. So that would be where I'd be a little bit concerned. You know, EVs at the moment in the UK are quite tough when it comes to insurance and things like that. So just proceed with caution. I mean, this country road that I'm on now does feel quite narrow, but in fairness, again, the visibility gives me a lot of confidence when it comes to the shape of the car, and I'm really excited to try out the EV3, which is a much smaller version of this, because I feel like that will be a really, really good all-rounder. It's quite easy to see then why the EV9 won World Car of the Year. It's a really nice package put together, and I think it's really a future glimpse of what's coming from Kia, and I'm excited about it. I do think though that you've got to take it with a pinch of salt because the depreciation is going to be a bit of a hit in this one. But if you can stomach that, I think the value proposition is actually there. It's fantastic to live with day to day. If you can charge it at home overnight on a cheap tariff, then you're going to be winning. And overall, I just think it's a really nice car to live with. Are its rivals going to be a little bit more flashy and potentially a little bit more fun to drive? Yes, but Kia is a brand that you can trust. And I do think that actually it's one of those cars that you can just confidently buy without any worries. So thanks again to Kia for sending me out the car. I really appreciate it as always. Thanks to you guys for tuning in, watching, liking, commenting, subscribing, all that good stuff. It really helps out the channel. Please subscribe if you haven't already. That really helps me out. If you're looking for lease deals on cars, check the links in the description below. That's all from me this time. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.